Now get ready. Here we go.
What is going on, everybody? It is Arkham here. I recently saw a new post on Instagram from Six Flags Great Adventure and Six Flags in regards to operators getting IROC trained at the park. And it kind of invested me a little bit to do a little bit of some research about exactly what IROC is, and well, this is what I found out about it. So IROC is also known as International Ride Operator Certification. It's a third-party certification program for ride operators at theme parks. So basically, this program is a training mechanism to improve safety, efficiency, and overall professionalism for the parks in general. Now, how does this affect operations for certain rides? Well, one thing's for sure is that towards the end of the season, we kind of have already seen this play out. And I kind of been thinking a little bit about IROC a little bit, and especially the other parks that it's being used at. It's being used not only at stuff like Nickelodeon Universe not too far from here, Holiday World, and the Fun Spot parks, but also it is the certification of choice for the entire Cedar Fair chain. So Cedar Point uses this, Canada's Wonderland, just to name a few parks that are involved in the Legacy Cedar Fair company that uses IROC. Now, Six Flags Great Adventure has jumped onto that bandwagon, and my presumption is that so will all the other parks in the Six Flags Entertainment Corporation chain. They are going to hop onto the IROC bandwagon. Now, as I've already mentioned in my definition of IROC is all about safety and efficiency when operating amusement rides. Now, even that could also mean sacrificing overall operation time and dispatch times for certain attractions, which already might sound concerning. However, from the standpoint of a big company with a lot of parks, you have to put safety first. And I always will respect ride operators for putting safety of other riders first, because that is their job. So even if, in my personal opinion, I think that slowing down operation times will help keep guests safer, that should be always the priority. Now, for a lot of people, they have known that Great Adventure for the longest time has always been known to have some really fast dispatch times and has been really efficient with their operations over the past couple of seasons. I know last year they've had a couple of issues, but years in the past, they are always just on top of operations and are sending trains out at the snap of a finger. Can that still happen this season? Absolutely. This upcoming season, they definitely can still have operations pull out to those numbers, but I have a weird feeling that some rides are going to end up taking a hit from an operation standpoint because of this new program. All the rides being certified in this, obviously there's going to be a learning curve. There's going to be a little bit of slower operations because most of the ride ops do not know of IROC that well. So, for this video, I figured we'd take a couple of rides that are currently at Six Flags Great Adventure and talk about why I think that these specific rides could be affected because of this change of procedures. Now again, this doesn't necessarily mean that this ride is going to have like a 2-hour wait or it's going to have really slow dispatch times. These are just rides that, in my opinion, could become more of a priority for you to get out of the way quicker, because there could be some very interesting things about these rides because of how they now have to operate. We have already seen signs of this at the park before the park closed for the season, including with some of the rides that I'm going to list off momentarily. So sit back and relax and let me know what rides do you think are going to be affected in the 2025 season by this brand new program and certification procedures that are in the ride operations training. And once again, I just want to advocate and say that I am 100% for them using IROC if it means that safety and efficiency of operating rides are going to improve the guest and employee experiences, because you want to keep the guests happy and you want to keep them safe as you do with the employees. So of course, that is their business decision and I am not going against them for that. This video is again just about the specific rides that I think could have some issues in terms of whether it be long lines or whether it be a capacity thing that could hinder why a ride might be slower than others. So with that being said now, let's talk about some of these rides. I first want to start out with the two rides that I've already saw signs of this already take place at. And this is the Dark Knight Coaster and Justice League attractions. Both of these rides I've already been seeing signs already applying what's already been mentioned from this new edition going into this next season, with all the rides now having it. Dark Knight especially, because one of the things I noticed in comparing it to when I went to Dorney Park earlier in the year, I saw that they were really pushing back on their Wild Mouse, which the Dark Knight is a Wild Mouse coaster of the same layout for the most part. And I noticed that they were stacking trains to the brim. And Dark Knight has a very interesting capability, unlike a lot of other Wild Mice coasters, where they are able to roll trains through the station, and because of that, not only are they able to operate quicker and more efficiently and get riders on and off the ride faster, but they also can load more riders and get a higher throughput through this ride. Not only that, but since bringing the pre-show back to its former glory, so to speak, I will definitely say that the spacing out of the riders that are waiting in line between from the pre-show going into the ride itself is definitely much more suitable and easier to go by. However, I can't help but think back to my time in Dorney Park and how I think that Wild Mouse coaster is going to affect this Wild Mouse coaster. This has nothing to do with the ride effects on the inside. It's just a full operation standpoint. It felt not only a lot slower, but I think even through that, they probably had to wait until, my guess is they had to wait until the other train that was unloading got off before they even let that train go through, or they cannot let a train proceed through if the ride itself is moving. I'm not too sure exactly which of the latter it is, or they have to wait a certain while, but basically they only had like 2 trains on the track essentially circulating the entire layout, and that was it. They didn't have any more than that. So I kind of wish they would sort of bring back its former glory to what it was at, where they basically just dispatched it, and as soon as it got through to Lift Hill, that's a block section, it's done, it's clear, send the next train. But I don't know, maybe that was just a one-off thing, but who knows, I kind of saw that there as well. And also the same thing kind of happened at Justice League at the end of the season as well, where they sent out a whole one train. I was on one car, for instance, and then once we got to the final scene where they show you the scoreboard, it probably took like 4 or 5 minutes just to get off of the ride because of how far back everything was stacked. And again, that could just be the training implement just getting put into it, and or some other issue that happened with the ride. I wasn't too sure, but the line essentially was out the door. Both switchbacks I know were already put in. Like, it got to the point where we had to use a flash pass for it, and we still had to wait about approximately 5 to 10 minutes just to get on the ride, which was quite annoying. And even though it was during Holiday in the Park, usually that ride gets a little bit more popular during Holiday in the Park because of the weather, it still is something that is concerning because of how it all progressed through, and I think there are obviously better ways to go about that. I have never operated Justice League before, but I know people that have, so that really, they would know that more than I would. And while we're in the Justice League area, we might as well also mention Flash Vertical Velocity, the newest coaster that's going to be opening in 2025 at Six Flags Great Adventure, a super boomerang coaster by Vekoma. And already, for it being a boomerang coaster, kind of already throws in that caution flag into the air a little bit, because I've also noticed that the boomerangs at other select Cedar Fair parks are usually on the slower side. I'm just hoping that this one doesn't share that same fate as its other fellow boomerang companions across the chain. And it's rather unfortunate that it sort of follows suit with that a little bit. I don't exactly know how this one would work out. I know it's got double-sided lockers, which is great. That's going to help out a lot. The indoor queue separating that. We're still not sure if it's going to have a pre-show or not, whether it's going to kind of operate the same length as Dark Knight is, and kind of dividing up the space with that. but it'll be a little bit interesting to see exactly how Flash operates now that it's going to open with the full-on ride training through IROC. It'll be very interesting to see how it compares to the other rides that are transitioning into this new program a little bit as well. I will also mention that because of it being a boomerang, the capacity is not going to be quite there. So really it's going to come down to exactly how they are able to run said ride safely, efficiently, and professionally, while also dispatching trains as quickly as they possibly can. I just have to mention Flash primarily because of the fact that it is a boomerang coaster, and also because it is the newest coaster to open at the park, which means it's going to be fresh into the program, and that's going to be the ride where we really get to see the the actual IROC in place and how it differs from how they've operated rides in the past. So this is definitely going to be a ride to watch for sure, to see how the operations have changed throughout the park, and just seeing the small snippets of the Cedar Fair, the legacy Cedar Fair chain, get thrown into this park. The next ride I want to talk about is the Jersey Devil coaster. This is a ride that has had so much struggles in 2024, and I don't exactly know how much of those struggles are going to be fixed going into the season, but if what I'm going off of here that IROC and IRT have on their website here, I'm going to be totally honest with you, I don't ever foresee Jersey Devil coaster running 4 trains ever again. It's kind of a sad reality to think about, but Jersey Devil is probably going to get hit with a truck through this certification program, primarily because I really think that moving platforms are one of the biggest things that they're trying to avoid, we'll say. I don't really want to say avoid, but I feel like they have special procedures for stuff like that in place. That's going to be an interesting one to watch, just to see how well and how many trains they run, but also just to see how it does run in general, if they bring a 3rd train back, so on and so forth with Jersey Devil. The way the ride is manufactured, how the ride itself runs, and just overall maintenance is going to be an issue with this ride. I don't know how long this ride has left at Great Adventure, even though the ride is relatively new. It should be very interesting to see how this ride performs and how training has maybe even changed how this ride's going to operate. So hopefully maybe we'll see Jersey Devil sort of resurface into its former glory, but this is a ride I'm very concerned about going into 2025, and I don't even know if this IROC thing is going to help it out that much. Only time will tell, though. And one other ride I think that is going to be affected by this by a little bit of a margin is the Joker. This is just a ride that has been constantly getting changes since it had opened. It once had 2 loading stations for 2 different trains at once, and then they took that away, and then they reduced the amount of trains this ride could run by like 2 at the end of the season. So this is a ride that's just been constantly changing, and I feel like because they have Tubili at King's Dominion, I kind of see some similarities with how Tubili runs and how they're going to operate this ride as well. Joker's one of those roller coasters I don't think is going to stay around very long at Great Adventure, but at the end of the day, I feel like this is a ride that's going to get a lot of change as it's operating through this new procedures. At the end of the day, I'm very interested to see how IROC affects the operations at Great Adventure. Again, Great Adventure has been one of those Six Flags parks that's been constantly known for having some of the best operations in the entire company, and I'm very curious to see how this new implements of procedures is going to affect how the rides continue to be operated, and hopefully it could prove some improvements to them, or maybe some detriments. We don't exactly know, but I'm very curious to see how all of that works out. And that's going to do it for today's video on some rides that could have slower operations, but you know what? I could be totally wrong by the start of the season, and I would totally love to be wrong. We only can see what happens once we get to opening day. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, and always thank your ride operators. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I will see you all in the park very soon. Goodbye.
Here we go.